We've got some questions from clients and other folks about some real estate things that I'm going to answer for you today. This is a new series we're doing called Mic'd. I am Mike, Mike Van Cleve, realtor with the Mike Van Cleve team at RE/MAX Traders Unlimited. And let's get right into it. First question is, what is earnest money? So earnest money is what I like to call feet to the fire money. It is deposited within, typically in our contract, within 1 day of an accepted offer, and it is held on the buyer and seller's behalf. It's the buyer's money, but it's deposited within into an escrow account, whether that's with the listing company or what's called the selling company or the buyer's representation company, or sometimes the title company will hold earnest money. And that is money that keeps the buyer in the deal, right? It's something of, and it doesn't necessarily have to be money, it just has to be something of monetary value. Now, it has to be something that the seller is willing to accept. So like the keys to a car, one of the real estate trainers that I listened to when I was first in the business talked about how, as a broker owner, he once held the title to a car as earnest money. So it just means that if something happens that is not contractual, the buyer would forfeit that to the seller, and it has to be something that is of enough value that the seller would consider that to be recourse for the deal falling through. And not falling through because of any contractual thing like inspections or lack of the buyer's ability to get financing, although that shouldn't be an issue, but it's more so that the buyer just didn't get cold feet. Next question, what role does the title company play in a real estate transaction? So the title company's job is to oversee the process of a smooth transaction or smooth transition from one owner to the next. So they're going to do what's called a title search. That title search is going to show what's called a chain of title. So title being the ownership of the property. So who owned it last, and they're going to make sure that there's nothing that would interfere with that transfer of the property. Common things that would interfere would be liens. So, seller took out a mortgage to purchase the house. That mortgage has to be paid off prior to the home closing. And typically what happens is that is paid off at the closing. So the seller's balance is paid off by the money that the buyer is bringing. And then that mortgage gets released, and then the new mortgage, if the buyer is getting a mortgage, will be placed on the property. Other things, or what we call clouds to the title, would be things like mechanics liens, which sounds like somebody who's doing work on your car, but really it's a contractor who maybe did work on the property but didn't get paid for that. And so they have a special type of lien that they can put on the property called a mechanics lien that ensures that when the property sells, they will get paid. Taxes can also be liens. So if past taxes haven't been paid, the county or municipality will put a lien on the property, and those taxes have to be paid to remove that cloud of the title. And they are an insurance company, effectively making sure that the property can transfer from one owner to another, and if something were to come up after closing, then the new owner could file a claim against the title insurance. And typically in our market, the seller will buy the buyer a title policy, and then if there's a bank involved, the buyer buys the bank a title policy. How do real estate taxes work? Real estate taxes in Illinois are paid in arrears, which means that we pay last year's taxes this year. So in Peoria, the tax bill comes out in June, and there are 2 installments to that. They're 3 months apart, which makes very little sense to me. I've never really understood that. The bill comes out in May. The first installment is due in June. And the second installment is then due in September. And if you have an escrow account, so you put less than 20% down, most lenders will, actually all lenders that I've experienced, will require you to escrow, meaning your payment includes what the taxes and the insurance would be, so that when those bills come due, your lender or your loan your escrow account will pay those bills. So that's how real estate taxes work. So typically they're calculated based on what the county feels like the value is on the property. Owners have the ability to contest those tax bills through a process, and we've helped clients in the past where they get their tax bill and the county says that their property is assessed at $175,000, but they feel like their property is only worth $150,000, and so we pull comparable sales, and we help kind of go through that process to contest. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Can I write closing costs into an offer? Yeah. So doesn't mean the seller is going to accept less for the house because you want to write your closing costs into your offer, but it is something that is feasible. So typically, let's say, we're writing an offer on a property and it's a first-time buyer and they're trying to maximize what they're putting down. Let's say it's a $100,000 property. Closing costs will vary from one lender to another. We'll talk about kind of what closing costs are, but if it's a $100,000 property and we were offering, say, $95,000, if the buyer wanted to include $3,000 of closing costs, we might write the offer at $98,000. Now, typically we would write lower and we'd negotiate, but kind of you get the gist for this example. So the seller is going to net $95,000 whether there's closing costs included or not. So $95,000 offer without closing costs, or $98,000 with $3,000 in closing costs. It's a way to kind of write your closing costs into your mortgage, but then again, you're paying interest on that additional $3,000 for the life of the loan. And so there's some trade-offs there as to whether that's worthwhile or not, but we consult every client on a case-by-case basis. So what can I expect to pay for closing costs? Different lenders will vary. We have some lenders that are anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500. Typically that doesn't include your first years of homeowners insurance for that amount. That's going to include things like the cost of the inspections, the cost of the appraisal, the lender's cost to prepare the paperwork on their end. It's going to include the title company, the buyer's charges for the title company, or what the lender expects those charges to be. And so it can vary, if buyers are buying what are called points, which is prepaid interest, typically 1% of the purchase price will equal a certain percent or fraction of a percent off of the interest rate. That can be something that can be included in closing costs, things like that. And so it's the things that get us to the closing table, the fixed expenses that a buyer incurs for the people behind the scenes to do the work. What is the timeline for buying a house? So in most contracts, it is on a conventional mortgage. We typically write conventional mortgages at 30 days for a contract. And then for government loans like an FHA or VA, which is a Veterans Administration loan, if somebody is active duty or had formerly served in the military, or a USDA, what are typically referred to as a rural development loan. Those are all government-backed loans. We typically write those contracts at 45 days, typically because it takes a little bit longer. There's another set of eyes, whether it's the whether it's the Veterans Administration or whether it's the Department of Housing and Urban Development, to look at those loans and give it the stamp of approval. Why do we make cookies for our clients? I have been commonly referred to as the baking realtor here in Peoria, Milk's favorite realtor in Peoria. When I started selling real estate in January of 2012, I wanted to bring something to the equation that was from myself. I always say I grew up in the kitchen. My mom was a speechwriter for the government and did copywriting and things like that. And then when I was in high school, change of administration, I grew up in the DC area. She started, her boss, new administration, yada, yada, yada. She was doing some freelance writing from the house and started doing some catering work. And I've always had an affinity for baking. My first jobs were in a bakery, in a gourmet grocery store, working for an independent baker. It was just, the kitchen's always kind of been someplace where I felt most comfortable. And it was important to me when I started in real estate that people understood that I was bringing something of myself to the equation. It's just kind of a nice thing that says like, hey, I've done something for you, and we've got this secret chocolate chip cookie recipe that we are commonly or kindly referred to as van cookies. They're also Mike's closing cookies. They're cookies so good you're gonna be okay with taking out a mortgage. Those are all kind of names that clients have given them, and it's just something that kind of is a piece for me that says like, hey, I want to start this relationship out on a good front, and there's going to be give and take here. We act as the guide for our clients. We always say that our clients are the hero of their own story, and we have the benefit of being their guide through the process. And so giving somebody something at the beginning of a transaction is kind of our way of tangibly giving them an example of that. So that's why we do it. And it was fun in our first year when we sold 17 homes. This year we're on track to do about 76 homes. And so it's something that we still do. I have a commercial mixer at home. My kitchen is probably as close to a commercial kitchen as you can get without being certified. But it's just, it's something fun that we do. Hopefully you've enjoyed these questions about the real estate process. I guess mostly buyer related questions today. If this is something that people enjoy hearing about and watching, then I can do another one maybe geared more towards sellers. But thanks so much for watching. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and you'll catch the videos as we put them out. Check out our homepage at mikevancleve.com. That's M-I-K-E, V as in Victor, A-N as in Nancy, C as in Charlie, L-E-V-E like clever, but without the R.com. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video. Take care.